I'm Martha DeGrasse for RCR Wireless, and I'm here with Tony Tagliareni. He is Chief Marketing Officer for ClearSky Technologies. Tony, thanks for being here today.
Thanks for inviting me. Good morning.
So you've got a solution for regional carriers who may not be able to invest in a small cell solution of their own. Can you give us an update on how that's working and how you're sort of spreading the cost among a number of operators?
Yeah, so Martha, again, thank you. It's working very well. The operators that we work with really are challenged from a financial perspective. They really want to increase capacity, reduce churn amongst their subscribers, and they like to do that through small cells. The problem is making that investment into the small cell gateway and the underlying infrastructure is a difficult thing for them to do. So what ClearSky does is we actually make that investment for them and implement what we call a multi-tenant environment, and then each of those operators has an opportunity to use that technology to, like I said, deploy small cells within their networks, be they residential or enterprise small cells.
Now, what size of investment are we talking about?
So that's a good question. So if a rural operator, regional operator were to make this investment on their own, depending on their requirements, they could easily spend $1.5 million to $2 million just for the gateway. That doesn't include the access points, which they themselves will vary in cost. Typically, a residential access point is retailing now for around $200. The wholesale cost obviously is going to be a little bit less than that. Enterprise access points that'll support, say, 16 channels or 8 to 16 channels will run anywhere from $1,200 to $1,600. So when you talk about even if you're a regional operator that has, say, 50,000 subscribers and you need to buy hundreds of these access points, the residential access points, that adds up in addition to the cost of the infrastructure. But it's more than just the infrastructure cost. There's another component here that I believe the regional operators have some difficulty with, and that is the operational expense and also the expertise. If you spent any time talking to regional operators, they'll be the first to tell you that they're understaffed, that everybody has to wear multiple hats, they're running their operation, they're putting out fires just like everybody else, and it's just difficult. And to get the expertise that you need in rural America for some of this newer technology is a difficult thing to do. And ClearSky brings that to the table because we've been in the business now since 1995, and we have a long list of carriers, and we focus on the regional operators. So right now we've got about 60 regional operators that we count as clients, and we're bringing this small cell service to them, as quickly as we can. One point though, for clarification, the technology that we use can only be deployed into GSM UMTS networks. It's not pervasive into CDMA, and that's sort of a reality we all have to deal with.
Okay, that is a good point. And the gateway itself would be in Denver, I think you told me?
Yes, exactly. So ClearSky has 3 data centers. Our flagship data center is in Denver, Colorado. It's in a colo facility called Fortrust, and that facility is state-of-the-art, and we're very proud of that. The gateway itself is fully redundant. We offer 5 nines worth of service in terms of reliability, which is exactly what the carriers need as they deploy the service commercially. Another point I'd like to make from a carrier perspective, and I know you didn't ask the question, but the advantage to the carriers really is twofold. They can use the small cell service to address churn. I'm sure you know that when folks do research on why customers are churning, the number one reason why there is churn is poor in-building coverage. So you put one of these residential access points into a consumer's household, they immediately get 5 bars of service. They get better battery life because the handsets aren't working so hard to connect and maintain a connection into the base station. And then on top of that, sort of the churn reduction advantage, you obviously have the increasing capacity because each of these small cells, whether it's a residential small cell or it's a enterprise small cell, all of them serve to densify the network. They all become like little base stations themselves, and that's key for a lot of carriers that have real issues when it comes to network capacity.
So the small cell hardware itself, you sell that, and also other vendors' hardware can be used? The carriers have a choice, is that right?
Repeat again, I'm not sure I'm
The
following.
small cell hardware, the access points.
Oh, the access points.
Yeah.
So the way the technology works is the access points typically are married to the gateway that you're using. So if you're going to use, say, an Alcalu or an Ericsson gateway, you're typically going to deploy their access points. They're all built on a standard, and in theory it's all supposed to work, but I think it's best and safest if you deploy the access points that have sort of been intended to work with that particular gateway.
Okay, great. So are there any particular vendors that you find popping up the most in your experience with your clients?
Vendors in terms of using the service?
Yeah.
ClearSky is actually the only vendor that offers a hosted femtocell or small cell service in the world, certainly in the Western Hemisphere, as it applies to GSM and UMTS networks. There is another entity that is providing small cell service to CDMA operators, but they themselves are a carrier. So between the two of us, we do have sort of a comprehensive solution for the rural space.
Now for carriers, is this CapEx or Opex? Do they pay you once or do they pay you continually?
Good question. So all the services that ClearSky provides are hosted services, and the advantage to that is there's no CapEx expenditure that's required by the operators, which they find as a very good thing, because it frees up some capital for them to deploy in other areas, say like building out an LTE network or those kinds of things, or just expanding their network footprint in general. So it's an Opex deal when they contract with us and anything like that, right?